he has to respond. He said he would respond. So the U.S. is sort of boxed into a corner. We can't not do anything. And I think if it's just an airstrike, that's not enough. It's got to be robust. I recommend to all of your listeners the Wall Street Journal lead editorial this morning talking about what we have to do. It's got to be a robust response.
Is the Pentagon communicating with the White House? I think there's a lot of people listening, both Democrats and Republicans, would say if our Valliere response is run out of the White House, that could be problematic. Are the adults going to take over, the adults at the Pentagon?
Yeah, I think they will. We heard the top general over the weekend say, we don't want to be disproportionate. We don't want this to spin out of control. But it's also a political story, as you know, Tom. And I think that politically, Biden has to do something muscular. He can't have one little wimpy attack. And if he does, that's going to make his reelection prospects even more difficult.
That's kind of where I wanted to go, Greg. I mean, this is a political year, an election year. Typically, in your experience, how does that factor into the calculus of these types of decisions?
Well, it politicizes everything, and I think on this, there has to be something that would convince the American public that the Iranians have been punished on this. And what we've seen since the 7th of October is little hit here, a little hit there, nothing all that big. And what that does is simply embolden the Iranians.
And Greg, to what extent? I mean, this is all a function of what happened on October 7th, as you mentioned here. To what extent do you think the U.S. should be pressuring Israel to kind of wind this thing down, or is that not on the table at this point?
Oh, I think off the record, there's communications between the U.S. and Israel, with the U.S. saying, "Let's cool it. Let's have a ceasefire for a while. Let's get some of these hostages back." I think from a PR standpoint, that would be quite positive for Israel and the U.S.
So, I mean, is this something, the new normal, I guess, Greg, here in the Middle East? Is this what happened on October 7th? This is going to portend multiple years of just a higher level of unrest. Is this kind of the new normal for the next several
It
years?
could be. That's a distressing conclusion, Paul. But I do think that the Houthis have changed a lot. I'm not sure the Houthis are totally under the control of the Iranians. Yemen is now part of the narrative. So you've got some new players here, and I think because of that, all bets are off.
Greg, you mentioned the election here. I just want to go to the military as well. One of the discussions that James Stavridis today in an op-ed in Bloomberg Opinion really lays out a detailed military response. Is a third carrier in the region? I'm sorry, Greg. It's starting to, on a countable basis. It's starting to look like
Yeah,
a war.
yeah, and
It's like the
you have to
Philippines in '42.
you have to say, Tom, that this now gets us into the debate on how much we're spending on defense. And a lot of hawks are saying not enough. We've got problems in the South China Sea. We've got problems in the Red Sea and the Persian Gulf.
Right.
So I think there's going to be more spending on defense.
Okay, I'll go with that. But the idea here that we're going to have supposedly three carriers in one region draws resources away from other areas. And I guess the basic idea is out there somewhere is an adversary that has one or two carriers or four carriers, but they don't, do they? I mean, who are we going after in terms of military threats here?
Well, the enemy is illusory, and that's a problem. We don't they don't have uniforms that we can pinpoint. And I would add, Tom, one other complicating factor, and that's the growing sense of isolationism in the U.S., in the Republican Party. We still don't see any aid for Ukraine. We don't see any aid for Israel, for Taiwan. And I do think this mood of isolationism makes it a lot more difficult for Biden.